Move by President Obama. He's ordering the federal government to buy a prison in rural Illinois and convert it into the country's most secure facility in order to house a limited number of terror detainees currently held at the U.S. military prison in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois strongly favors the move.
People are desperate for good jobs, and the jobs we're talking about here are some of the best. Over 3,000 new employees in this area, half of them from local people who will be getting jobs with good paychecks and good benefit packages. These are jobs that you can use to build a family, build a neighborhood, build a town and a community, and that's what we need desperately.
All right, let's talk about the controversy with the Republican Congressman Don Manzullo of Illinois and George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley. Gentlemen, thanks very much for coming in. This is your district, Congressman, I take it, where this prison is. Is that right?
It is. That's correct, Wolf.
And so you don't want to create jobs in your district? Is that what you're saying?
That's not a fair question. I do want to create jobs by opening that prison either as a standalone federal or as a standalone state facility. The state of Illinois is at 177% of capacity. The governor just released 1,850 felons because he had no place to put them. And if even half the anticipated economic activity takes place as a standalone prison, there's more than enough in revenues by state sales tax and state income tax in order to keep that prison going.
But you're concerned that if they bring over 100 of these terror detainees, what is your major concern? Because you heard Dick Durbin, you heard others, including the governor and the president for that matter, say you shouldn't really be concerned about the security, but that's your concern.
Well, I share the same concern as Senator Jim Webb of Virginia, Senator Lieberman of Kentucky, and former Governor Sebelius of Kansas. Governor Sebelius successfully wrote to President Obama and said, we do not want the Gitmo terrorists at Leavenworth, not because they'll break out, but because they'll create a magnet of activity. There'll be lightning rods for terrorists and terrorist cells to come into the area, thus disrupting the normal business and endangering the schools in the area. So we better be concerned about this. I have said from the beginning, there's a threshold question that must be answered and which the administration refuses to answer, and that's this. If the reason for closing Gitmo Bay is that it creates so much hatred among the terrorists that it serves as the #1 recruiting tool for al-Qaeda. If Gitmo Bay is moved to Thomson, Illinois, and it's not being closed, the prisoners and the personnel and the operations are going to Thomson Bay. What assurance do we have that that hatred won't transfer from Gitmo to Thomson, which is obviously a much more vulnerable spot than Gitmo Bay?
Does the Congressman Jonathan Turley make a good point?
I have to confess, I don't really understand the point in that we have had terrorist suspects housed in the United States, al-Qaeda suspects. I've represented both terrorist and espionage defendants. There isn't any risk. They haven't been magnets. The reason Guantanamo Bay became the place for Gitmo had nothing to do with its security. It was put there so that they could avoid U.S. courts. It was a rather transparent effort to deny them legal rights. But what we're doing, and frankly what the Congressman is doing, is creating this image of al-Qaeda that they're somehow supermen and that we're cringing from them, that we don't want even to have a supermax facility that's housing a few of them because we're afraid that they're going to come and to attack us. There's no support for that.
There is support behind that. #1, according to Phil Carter, who was the #1 person in charge of detainees, this will be the largest concentration of incarcerated al-Qaeda and Taliban terrorists in the United States. And the few that the professor may have represented, there are only about 10 or 12 international terrorists that are housed in the entire federal system.
Let me interrupt you, Congressman, because Dick Durbin, your senior senator from Illinois, he says there are about 350 convicted terrorists serving time in various federal penitentiaries.
According to Harley Lappin, who's the head of Bureau of Prisons, of the 340, 220 are mainstream with the regular prisoners. The other 120 are set aside in the Supermax in Florence, Colorado, Marion, Illinois, and Terre Haute, Indiana. But those are just a handful of people. It's not the same as if Guantanamo Bay is moved to an area that represents the largest concentration of these terrorists.
Jonathan Turley, you're a professor of law, so you appreciate the legal aspects. By moving these 100, let's say, to Illinois, would they get greater legal rights serving at the Thomson facility as opposed to the legal rights they have at Guantanamo Bay?
Well, Wolf, they were already getting greater rights. The Bush administration
But would they even get more rights in Illinois than in Cuba?
Well, that's yet to be determined. I think there's a greater chance for it. They're on U.S. soil, but the court had already determined that you couldn't get out of U.S. law by moving them to Guantanamo Bay. So the Bush administration wasn't successful in that effort. But what it will do, Wolf, and what is really should be the thing that we treat this as a point of celebration, is that if you want to defeat al-Qaeda, the best way to do it is to prove that we're not hypocrites. They're hypocrites. They use religion to kill people. They have special rules for themselves and for others. The best way to defeat terror is to show that we're not afraid of them and that we're not going to change the way we do things. They're criminals.
Well, let me just press you on that point, Professor. Hold on one second. Would they be allowed to receive visitors in Illinois as opposed to in Gitmo? They obviously are not getting visitors over there. Would others be allowed to visit them at this proposed federal penitentiary?
Probably not, to the extent that people think they would. When you have a high-ranking terrorist client, they are often under what are called SAMs, which are special procedures. This would be a supermax situation. These guys are likely to be in their cell for all of about a day, with the exception of maybe 20 to 40 minutes a day. They're not going to be mingling with the population and holding terrorist seminars.
But Professor,
they will be under SAMs.
They will bring their Bevins rights cases, all kinds of civil rights cases. And you know what really bothers me, and I know you and I agree upon this, is the fact that the federal government wants to bring us maybe between 120 people, terrorists, as to whom the government does not want to give any type of a trial, either in a federal court or in a military tribunal. It really smacks against the Constitution that, God forbid, we should hold anybody in this country without having any type of a trial. And you know darn well when that gets tested, the ACLU and other groups that are out there fighting in representing these various prisoners, that somewhere along the line the Constitution is going to be honored and the courts are going to say, look, we have to give these people more constitutional rights.
Go ahead and respond.
And that will be a great victory for our country when that happens. As a native of Illinois, I'm proud that my native state will be housing this prison.
But
and will bring justice to these people. But it will be a great moment, not a weak moment, not a problematic moment. It'll be a great moment when we bring them into court and say that our laws will apply to you the same as they apply to other defendants, and you will be punished to the full extent of that law.
Congressman, I assume you've been to the Thomson Correctional Center in your district.
I've driven by it. I've not gone.
You've not actually, because I'm wondering, are you concerned of possible escape?
No, there is no way possible anybody can escape from that prison. I've never been concerned about that. That's not the security issue. The security issue is that, as again, what Governor Sebelius said to President Obama when saying don't bring these terrorists to Leavenworth, is the fact that the whole area will serve as a magnet or lightning rod with which to attract terrorists and acts of terrorism. But that study has yet to be done.
But Congressman,
and my fear is that study will never be done.
But Congressman, what does that mean? What does it mean that terrorist groups are going to be coming to this prison? What could they possibly hope to achieve by coming to this prison? They're going to storm the prison?
No, they won't do that. It serves as a magnet. I mean, when you take a look at, for example, there was an article in the Washington Post on November 29th dealing with two Yemeni brothers. One's been at Gitmo for 8 years, and the other one was in Yemen. And the one in Yemen said, you know, when President Obama promised to close Gitmo, we thought that he would be releasing the prisoners, but if he decides to move those prisoners, including my brother, to the mainland of the United States, that the hatred will be even greater, and people will be more prone to do acts of violence. This is from the people impacted themselves.
Go ahead and respond, because we're out of time.
You know, Wolf, I'm not worried about the reaction of people in those corridors. The real family members that care about their loved ones, I think, will take some degree of solace that they're coming to the United States and may ultimately be given a trial, as they should be, and their guilt proven or disproven in a court of law.
Professor Jonathan Turley,
Professor, thank you for being very candid on the additional constitutional rights. I appreciate that. I wish more people in the administration were as candid as you are.
All right. Well, he's not in the administration. He's a professor at George Washington
I know that.
University Law School. But he does make that point. And, Congressman, you were very candid as well. Appreciate your
Thank you. Thanks, Professor.
Thank you.
Wolf.
All right. Good work to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
The health care push is on Capitol Hill. Is this